Let's see if I can get logged in here so I can see what the stream looks like.
What? The last one was...
The Twitch video going off there. All right. Twitch.tv. Huh. You know, I can't actually see how many people are watching right now, if any are. So hopefully I can be heard okay. Hopefully I'm not a little bit too loud. Kind of watch my voice there. I wonder what I sound like. Okay, is anyone watching? Ooh, all right. There's exactly 0 people watching. So that's pretty exciting. That means I can do whatever I want on the stream. And don't have to worry. You know, forget about videos, forget about recordings. It's not a big deal. There is a truly massive amount of Animal Crossing being played right now. For anyone watching, oh, looks like we got about 2 people watching. Thank you for joining us. Smash that subscribe button. What do the YouTubers say these days? Let me see. I think Pikachu is a little bit back there. Pikachu, like that. There you go. Nope, not quite right. Not quite good enough. There you go. Now he's a little bit more visible. I wonder how many students will show up if I do not post the notice to Piazza. We'll have to find out. Video producer. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna turn up the volume for just a sec. I'm gonna mute my mic so that I can hear what it sounds like on the stream, just to verify the audio is working okay. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing. Testing 1 2 3. Hello, my name is Austin. Testing 1 2 3. Hello, my name is Austin. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good, I think. Let's see here. Okay, hopefully bandwidth isn't going to be an issue. In this household, we have one person streaming. We have another person who is on a VPN trying to connect to machines at the hospital to do some work. So we'll have to see if we run into any bandwidth issues. We shouldn't, but you never know. It's that Comcast life. Okay. Got about 3 minutes. I don't think I have any... You know what? I think I can get some more plushies in here. I'll be right back. Alright, can we see, is the newest plushie visible? Yes, he is. Kinda. Sort of. So let's see. There he is. I thought I had a bigger Kirby. A little bit disappointing. I should get a bigger Kirby. Kirby says, hi! 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 Because I don't think Kirby says much else. Maybe, whoa! Oh... I should get some background music going, actually. I think we only have about a minute or two before we're gonna start, but let's dunk windmill hills OST. There you go. Let's see how this sounds. I'm curious. Wouldn't it be funny if we just, hey, today's lecture is just a stream, right? I'm launching my streaming career today. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be playing through the Resident Evil 3 remake demo about 10 times in a row. I'm going to get some speedrunning going. Thank you for being here for this. This will be on the test. Oh, can you not hear me? Uh-oh. Alright. No one could hear my joke since Donkey Kong was too loud. That's a shame. What a shame. Is this better? Chat's like, yeah, I heard the joke. Yeah. Unfortunately, I heard it. Yeah. Okay, we'll get started. Ladies and gentlemen, chat in particular, could you verify? Do I sound okay? Can you make me out? All right. Sounds good. All right, fantastic. So let's go ahead and get into it. It's again a week of great change, but that brings lots of opportunity. And we'll be talking about opportunity and stuff like that today, actually. So a quick opportunity, actually, for everyone is the Stanley Parable, the game that we played last time for our Games and Art lecture. The cool game where you get to make choices and deal with this omnipresent kind of sarcastic narrator is free on the Epic Game Store until the 26th, which is tomorrow. So as soon as this lecture ends, or maybe you want to go ahead and grab it now, you can get it for free on the Epic Game Store. I highly recommend it. It's extremely fun, and I don't think you'll regret it. No way. So go ahead and grab the game if you can. Experimenting this late. Now, this is actually a piece of advice that I would make a little bit more sense during any other semester, right? When students, had more time to develop their stuff. We have all kind of been set back like a week at least, pretty much every team. So I would still say this is a time to still be experimenting, but you do want to start being a little bit careful about it, okay? Big pivots, they cost more and more and more as you get further into development, and so you got to be a little bit careful. I'll give you a few examples. Here's something that is actually very scary, and something that I think will really hit home to you when you see your feedback on the Milestone 2, which is going out tonight. Unfortunately, some bugs got through a few games, some very impactful bugs, and we have to nap those in the bud, nip those in the bud through lots of playtesting. So Capcom, right, the famous studio behind Resident Evil, Street Fighter, a bunch of iconic series. They recently, their most recent fighting game was Street Fighter V. Interestingly. So Capcom worked on this game for several years, right? A lot of people pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into this game so people could enjoy it, so that the company could stay afloat and do okay. Now, what happened was the company made a PC version, and they released an update for the PC version. And because of, I think, in their version control, there was a checkbox someone accidentally clicked. What they did was they accidentally sent rootkits to all of their PC customers. So if you owned the game on Steam, which I did, but unfortunately, continue with ad blocker. That's a pretty weird image, from The Witcher 3, by the way. I think it's Witcher 3, maybe Witcher 2. Someone in the chat can tell us. Capcom sent their Street Fighter V update to all of their customers. And it caused everyone to get a rootkit because they had included some software that they probably should not have. And so what happened was, I believe there was a little mini lawsuit that happened. I know this was a lot of really negative press for the Steam version of the game, and that really hurt their sales on that platform. And so in other words, I want you to think about this for a second. A single little checkbox that was accidentally ticked, right, saying include this piece of software in the build, caused years of work to be tainted. And so, in a way, investing more in something does not necessarily lower your risk. In fact, the more you invest in something, the more at risk you are of losing a lot, right? Not getting a good return from that, not really having the impact you wanted. Or in other words, as you invest in something more, you also need to increase your Q&A and increase your verification to keep that risk lowered, okay? It increases as you build something bigger. You have to push it back with playtesting and with time investment and with automated builds and stuff like that. Another example of this, when did this happen? The Mars Climate Orbiter was a drone that was being sent around Mars to collect scientific data, I believe. And when was this? When did this happen? 1998 it was launched, and it died horribly in 1999. This satellite right here cost many millions of dollars to make. I think 326 million USD. And a lot of people were putting their careers on this. And unfortunately, there was an issue with the contractor. See, the team, I think, at NASA, the engineers at NASA were doing certain calculations with the metric system and metric units, and the contractor was doing certain calculations with the imperial system and imperial units. And so what happened was they didn't quite communicate on one issue relating to like thrust. And so the orbiter got to Mars and then promptly like accelerated straight into Mars and boom, right? Exploded. And $326 million just rained down of scrap, rained down upon Mars when that happened. And that's really, really not great. And so, in other words, a tiniest of issues, right? A simple change of unit in one piece of code cost $326 million. And, you know, a lot of careers to be tarnished. And not even that, but like when the public reads about their extremely expensive space technology, like crashing into the side of planets, like that is not exactly something that's going to help NASA when they go to ask for more funding. So that's not great. Another example, James Cordier, and I think this was last year or something, a hedge fund manager that managed to lose $150 million of his investors' money with a few bad bets, I think a few puts on natural gas. He got wrecked. I used a crazy technique called naked option selling and got wrecked by it. And I think he's since become a meme. Let's see, James Cordier meme. James Cordier, $150 million. Yes, it's this meme right here. You sometimes see this image. So anyway, that's not good. Takeaway, the more you invest in something, the more verification you need to prevent catastrophic disaster. As your game grows in scale, this means as a team, you need to invest a little bit more time into playtesting to make sure that your game is going to run properly. Because if the game doesn't run properly and the deliverables keep getting like worth more and more points, like you do not want to be at the P3 gold deliverable, which is 64 points, I believe. And have the game like not run, or have a penalty applied because it wouldn't run on Windows or it wouldn't run on Mac. That'd be really bad. Okay, another thing you're going to notice when you get some of your feedback and your feedback videos tonight that you can watch is that the feedback is, I don't want to say it's gonna start becoming a little bit more harsh, but the expectations are certainly going up. And sometimes, maybe your team didn't have a super productive week, and that's understandable. That happens. We're still going to give you feedback, though, and we will let you know if we have a bit of disappointment. So if you get feedback, so I was in cross country and track in my high school days, and my coach. I remember a story in particular. I was the kind of guy that was always the worst person on varsity, the last place runner on varsity team, or the captain of JV, the top of JV. And so what happened was, I remember a long 14-mile workout that we did, where we ran through the entire city, and we were running, and I'm running with this pack, right? I'm running with a group of runners. And what I noticed was that whenever my coach would drive up in his car and like park and get out and run to the side of the sidewalk, he would always yell at me in particular, right? I was always be running with these friends of mine who had been around for a long time, and I was new, and he'd be yelling at me. He never seemed to point out any of the others who I was running with. Like, God damn it, Yarker! And he'd throw his hat down, say, get the lead out of your ass, right? You're slacking. What are you doing, right? And I'd have to speed up and I'd go flying, and it was really, really frustrating, right? I felt like my coach was always picking on me, and I really didn't like it, right? It didn't feel good, it wasn't, it didn't feel good in the moment. It wasn't, I thought I was being treated a bit unfairly. However, what I realized was that the reason my coach wasn't yelling at my teammates who were running beside me was because they'd been around for a long time and they just never really improved. Like, my coach wasn't yelling at my teammates, not because he appreciated their effort or because he thought they were doing a good job. My coach was not yelling at them because he'd kind of given up on them, right? However, he was yelling at me because he still had some hope and expectations, right? In other words, if your coach is yelling at you, that's actually a good thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but if your coach still has expectations, and your coach is still trying to get you to improve and throwing feedback at you, even if it's sometimes not delivered in a super digestible way, it means they still care. Otherwise, they wouldn't. It takes a lot of effort and energy to give feedback that's thoughtful and useful. And if you ever stop getting feedback, right, unfortunately, that means you're probably getting cut the next week, okay? That investment has gone down, and that's actually not something to be happy about, okay? In other words, this is just a long-winded way of saying if you get some feedback and it sounds a little bit too harsh, I apologize. We never want to be too harsh. However, we do want to make it clear what our expectations are, and we want you to have extremely high expectations for yourself. All right, Michigan students, you can do it, okay? You're going to have high expectations literally for the rest of your life, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? That's a good thing, and we got to get used to that. Okay, all right, you already have high expectations. What am I talking about? Okay, EECS 499, I want to talk about what this is really quickly, because backpacking and registration is coming up pretty soon. EECS 499 is a directed research course in which students get to explore an area of game development, usually kind of in combination with something else. So maybe that is game dev plus machine learning, or game dev plus music education, or game development plus social media. All right, and I actually have some examples down here. Ishwar, a former student of mine, did a fantastic job with his project Legato. As part of the course, you put together a dev blog, and you update us, and you work every week. You get to decide pretty much what work you're going to do. As long as you put in the hours, you're good. Way more chill than EECS 494 is. And let's see if we can get any video. Oh, here's Ishwar with his cool Design Expo example here. And let's see if we can... he got his game called Gridbeat up onto the store. I wonder if it has any reviews. I don't think it does. Oh, it's got a review. Yeah, it's a great game. Anyway, it is a game in which you have to essentially manipulate these panels in order to form the right beat. And so you have to really get a little bit of practice in. It kind of stresses your ability to appreciate notes and appreciate beats and organize them and stuff. So anyway, that's kind of neat. Let's go back here. This is really interesting. Project Hydra is a cool project by my student Haidar. He made a social networking app that is built around games, and in particular, creating your own characters, essentially putting them into a character bank, and then you can take your character into a bunch of different games, and it automatically works. For instance, he created this penguin. However, this penguin is just literally in the cloud. It's in the cloud database. It's just a series of sprites. And so any game developer can use his API to build a game that uses these sprites. In other words, characters that you make, like your OC or something, your original character, can suddenly be imported into every game on this platform. It's very, very cool, and a really unique way to combine games and social media. The project is still ongoing, and I think he's ready for a big iOS release. Here's a really cool, I wish I had video footage of this, but Matoska Waltz, a former student of mine, did a fantastic job and managed to embed machine learning and convolutional neural nets into Celeste. Essentially what it does is it takes the area near Madeline and it samples it. So you can see how the grid over here is kind of downsampled to be this pixel grid, kind of like mar.io. And you've got this genetic algorithm that produces different networks, and the character goes and does different inputs to try and get to the end of the stage. and it worked pretty darn well. He was able to speed up the algorithm by about a factor of about 100, and allow Madeline to get to, I think, the 4th room of the game, which was a new record for machine learning in Celeste. So pretty darn impressive stuff. Very good work by those students. I will send out more information on this topic probably a little bit later tonight. You'll get that alongside your feedback for the milestone 2. Okay? Some assignments released. P3 Alpha was released on Monday. I think on Monday evening. I was a little bit late on that. I apologize. This week's kind of new thing that you need to think about is devlogs. So your iteration.txt file was the place where you used to put your iteration. So you would talk about, okay, what did you do this week? What did you change? What feedback did you get? What are you going to do next week? Now you're going to be releasing that iteration.txt to the internet, essentially, and along with your recent build of your game. So itch.io, if you don't know about this, this is a pretty big site for distributing games, indie games in particular. You can go on, you can find all sorts of fantastic games, and you can also post your own, and you can post devlogs for those games. So you can read about, oh, okay, this game had a new devlog, and, oh, the game uses less RAM now, that's kind of cool, and here are the latest files. So if anyone wants to play, they can download it. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to register your game, create an account on the website, register your game page on that website, and you'll essentially do the same exact thing for IndieDB.com. Okay, IndieDB is kind of like itch.io, except slightly less popular. Still good traffic, though. And you'll also do it on the tigsource.com forums. And so what you probably will wonder is, Austin, why on earth are we doing this across 3 different websites? Well, the idea is that we want to start getting your projects as much feedback as possible. And not only peer feedback, not only 494 student and instructor feedback, but wider world feedback, okay? And it's scary, right? It is often said that college is the last time you're supposed to, you can make mistakes, like with no consequence, right? You're supposed to come to college and make mistakes and learn. However, now that most of you are just about to graduate, it's time to start kind of moving into a more realistic environment where, hey, we actually do publish stuff to the internet, to the public, and get feedback there too. So what you'll do is you are going to, and the assignment page describes this better, but you are going to write up a little post on, what you're going to do. Actually, let me just open it up. I don't think we'll have an issue here. Hello, Canvas. Hello. All right, there we go. So we'll open up the assignment here. Okay, we'll go through, we'll quickly scroll, we'll get the P3 milestone to P3 Alpha, okay? P3 Alpha. Internet is very slow right now. I apologize. Okay. Come on. All right, here we go. So you have to write just a couple of very short paragraphs, just saying, hey, what is new? Okay, what mechanics did you tweak? What balancing did you do? Did you add any content? Did you fix bugs? What motivation? So why is your project moving in the direction it's headed? Why did you add this new mechanic this week? And then what you plan to do for the next week, okay? You're gonna package up your Windows and Mac builds into a zip, and then you're gonna distribute these 2 things across these 3 websites. You do not need to make a new zip and a new blog post for each of these 3 websites. That would be a pain in the butt. You're pretty much just gonna be distributing your stuff to all 3 of those to just get a bigger audience, okay, looking at them, okay? So you'll also be putting a devblog.txt document in your Canvas submission so we know where to go for your stuff. And that's also the place where most students are going to go to get your build for peer playtesting. Okay, there's assignment update to the extra credit assignment, freelancer cooperation. EMU is having some troubles right now with their virus situation. Their courses may be a little bit more disrupted than ours is, which might be saying something. But we will not, unfortunately, be able to cooperate with many of them this semester. So, to get past that, you can get extra credit now by just finding an artist from anywhere. You don't need to use an EMU Studio 2. They're not going to reach out to you. Music is still going to reach out. Okay, the Pat 305 students are still going to reach out to you. But you may now reach out to any place you want. You can go to Wolverine Soft, the Discord server, and try and find an artist to help you out. You may go to the TickSource forums if you want to ask for collaboration, see if anyone wants to team up there. And there you go. You've got a lot more freedom now. If you've got some friends who want to contribute art, like make sure you trust them and make sure you get a little bit of a commitment from them, all right, so you don't get left hanging. And also make sure that you only have them work on stuff that is non-critical. But that could work. All right, a couple quick tips for your freelancing communication. And just remember, for music, so for art, you can go out and find someone. For music, someone's going to find you. And then for voice acting, which also gets you 5 points, there are a few different places you need to go to. The Voice Acting Club forums, castingcall.club, or SM School of Music, Theater, and Dance. All of those work. But you need to go out and get those contacts. Okay? So I want to talk a little bit about freelancing communications. This is a topic that is very important if you are freelancing, but can also go kind of wrong. So the most important thing is to communicate your expectations. Your freelancers might be fantastic. Your teammates might be fantastic, but they are not clairvoyant. They cannot read your mind. And when you describe what you want, if you leave it too vague, then you better be okay with it being interpreted in a surprising way. In other words, if you don't provide a lot of references, as in if you don't give your artist something that says, I want to look like that, and here's the image, okay? Or I want to have this kind of character with this kind of outfit, and this is the outfit I want, right? Or this is our art style. It's got to look like this with these kind of outlines, these kind of colors. If you don't give them that information, that specific information with references, then you had better prepare for surprises. Okay, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you want that, but you do need to provide references if you want to get something specific. Okay, here's what I mean by art styles. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so you can tell. There's a lot of cartoony stuff here, but even within the cartoons, you see there are just a ton of different art styles, right? You've got realistic art styles, you've got cartoony art styles, you've got really clean cartoony art styles, you've got more detailed ones, you've got ones with thick outlines, some with no outlines, okay? And all of this matters. Oh, here's a really cool example of this. All the different TV shows and their art styles, the same character in all of them. That's really, really cool. Wow. Okay, so always come to an agreement on a deadline. Everyone needs deadlines. Don't take it from me, take it from Walt Disney. Deadlines, right? They transform your dreams into goals and get you moving. So make sure you come up with a deadline for your partners. For 3D art, start sketches, then move to 3D models, set up a low latency communication channel, Discord, get them into your Discord, your Slack, and also provide a phone number and get one from them. Okay, if you need an asset right away, you're going to wish you had their phone number and you could call them. Okay? All right, does anyone have any questions thus far? And I'll give us a few seconds for the chat to type and for the delay to get by. Any questions? Give it about 20 seconds maybe. Don't watch me do this. This is not healthy. Should be careful about the energy drink. I was up last night. I think I went to bed about 5 because I was really close to finishing a Windows batch script that allows us to entirely download our entire build system onto a new Windows Amazon EC2 instance, which would allow us to build our game, run tests, and then export the results and the builds themselves to the internet off a server, an on-demand cloud server, which would be extremely cheap for us, because I do not want to buy a Windows machine for Arbor Interactive dedicated only to builds. So anyway, there's a lot of super cool stuff when you get into a startup and you're forced to do everything. And you want to... Took the class last semester, but just want to tune in anyways. Whoa, all right. Got the... How did you get my... my Twitch link? K Malcolm? How'd you get my Twitch link? All right, I assume no one has any questions, but I think I got it from Facebook meme group or something. Are you kidding me? Okay, can someone post that page? Meme group. Last week I sent a pic of the stream of Snapchat to my friend from OU came watch. Oh, that's fantastic. Very good idea. These are not usually public lectures, but I know a lot of people do enjoy popping in sometimes, even in person sometimes. Overheard at you, Mitch. Okay, this is something I need to make sure I check out. I'll check that out later. Hopefully it's not something too crazy. All right, so let's go ahead and get rolling here. All right, so today what I want to do is I want to cover another topic. We've been doing a lot of them lately. That have been about, okay, you've got these game dev skills. Now what can you do with these? So part of being a capstone course and / MDE course is we have to teach you not only, programming and how to build a game. Like, you already know how to program. You're already pretty good programmers. But we have a responsibility to also kind of teach you the context in which your systems live. Okay? Because that is what separates a programmer, right? Someone who's just good at writing software, from an engineer, someone who's good at producing systems that survive and have impact and that don't cost a ton, right? Efficient systems that serve their purpose for forever, potentially. And so how do we get that? Well, one thing that you need to know is business, okay? And I know it's a little bit fun. Sometimes we make some memes about the... maybe the Ross School, right? Sometimes if you are on the meme pages for computer science, there are occasional jokes, good-spirited jokes about the business students. I want you to know that business really, it's critical, and think about it this way, okay? Business can be thought of as making sure resources end up at the right place, okay? The management of resources. And without resources, we can't really do much of anything. It's hard to have impact. So let's go take a look. I want to talk about some ways to analyze business, because in the world of games and software and interactivity, this allows you to predict things. It might allow you to predict things like, is my team going to be around a year from now? Should I start polishing my resume? Which team should I join? Okay, what is my company going to do? What is my competitor going to do? How many startups are going to be fighting me in this particular technology space in 3 months? Okay, how fast should we move? Right? There are a lot of interesting questions that we can answer with a few really simple tools. Okay. Anyway, does anyone remember these? All right, the Pokemon cards. Right? Wow, Pokemon cards are so unique. Right? You go to the store and you pay some money. And you get this little, some might call it even a box, of things, what you might even call it loot. And you open it up, and some of this loot you get from the card pack, the card box, is, some of it's good, and some of it's stuff you already have, and some of it is pretty bad, and then maybe you get a super special rare card, okay? And if you don't get what you want, hey, you gotta go back to the store, and you gotta buy another... box of loot. Anyway, that's how it went back in the day, and everyone loved it. It's very strange. Interesting. Anyway, so in the news, a lot of interesting stuff is going on these days in the game space. You might have noticed, like Epic Game Store is now a pretty big thing, and it didn't used to be, right? Epic is now giving 88% of each sale to its developers, right? And a lot of developers love Epic's game store for that reason. They're giving away free games. Discord has a game store. Did you know that? You can buy games on Discord, and they currently give away 90% of the revenue. They give 90% cut to the devs, which is really cool. Bethesda has their own game store now. And Steam is now changing the way they do some of their cuts. There are all these stores. And the question is why? Why is this all happening? Players aren't necessarily thrilled about this, having a billion different stores they have to go to get games. But, is this inevitable? Could someone have predicted this? Right? So the times are changing. We're seeing a lot of cool streaming stuff happening lately. We'll talk about that soon. So back in the day, if you went through a game and you beat a hard challenge, you got a reward, okay? And here's what it looked like. You got to the end of a dungeon, and here is a loot box for you from the 90s. Ba 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 ba, right? And then you got a cool item, and you got to use it, and it was really fantastic. A good reward for your challenge and your investment of time and skill. Okay, these days, it can work a little bit differently. An example would be here in Overwatch. You work really hard, and you get another chest, and it looks something like this. Let's see here. Okay, what are we going to get? Whee! All right, got some skins, got some tokens, some character, I think. And it's very, very exciting, right? Look at how everything explodes, and it's so exciting and visceral. Lots of juice on that effect, okay? So, yeah, these things are in a lot of games these days, okay? They're called loot boxes, and they're extremely controversial among players, among business people, among developers, okay? Now, what happens, the way these work, is usually in a game, there's some way to earn these boxes, these things that you see exploding, right? Down here, the Star Wars version, here's the Overwatch version. And so you do a cool thing, or you work hard in the game, and you get some of these boxes. You get to open them up. Now, one of the big controversial changes here is that you can almost always buy these boxes. So you can spend money to get these boxes, and you open them up, and maybe you get something you want, maybe you don't. So, well, these are ways of progression in the modern day. The question is, well, what are these for? EA said a sense of pride and accomplishment. Reddit's most downvoted post in history was when EA said, hey, we made these boxes super hard to get because we wanted you to feel really accomplished and full of pride when you earned these boxes and opened them up. The real answer, of course, was we wanted to make the loot boxes very hard to earn so that you'd pay for them instead, right? And we'd make additional revenue that way, okay? And that's where a lot of controversy comes from, okay? But the question that's more interesting to us is, why did these come about now? Why are these loot boxes here now? And are they going to go away? Were they inevitable? And if we know those things, we can answer, hey, what might we be able to change if we want to get rid of those? Or if we want to make a game ourselves as a startup, then, how might we integrate these in a better way, right? So I want to plant a seed in your head really quickly for later, okay? Two different groups of games, okay? On the left, in the red, we have Overwatch, we have Shadow of War, and we have Battlefront 2, okay? These games were made by Activision Blizzard, okay? Big public companies, all of them. Activision Blizzard, Warner Brothers Interactive, and Electronic Arts, okay? And over here on the right, we have three games: Sea of Thieves, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Super Mario Odyssey. Okay, these were made by Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, respectively. Okay? The games on the left have loot boxes. The games on the right, I believe, do not. I'm not sure about Sea of Thieves. They might have added it. Okay? And the question is, why would the games on the left, all these are modern, expensive to make games, why would the games on the left have loot boxes when the games on the right do not? These are all made by very big companies and they all cost a ton of money to make. But the business models are just different between these games. And the question is why, okay? And if you know the answer to this, it will tell you a lot about what these companies think and how they work, okay? We'll come back to this in a bit. Another question for you, Steam, okay? Right, this is the digital game distribution platform, the most popular in the world. Valve Corporation made this. This is Origin, okay? Origin is Electronic Arts' competitor to Steam. Electronic Arts used to put their games on Steam, okay? And sell them on Steam. Their very own games they used to sell on Steam. But then they said, you know what? We're going to stop doing that. We're going to create our own platform and we're going to sell our games on there. And the question is, why would they do this? Okay? Why would they want to do this? Why would it be worth it to them? Because it's very expensive to do. Okay? So tools for business questions. Why did loot boxes appear? Why did EA create Origin? And why is GameStop absolutely in free fall right now? Okay? A few very simple tools, ecosystem maps and value chains, can help us understand and answer these questions and a lot more. Okay, and that's what we're going to cover today. Okay, these are two business tools that you should just have in your toolbox, even as an engineer, right? Become a well-rounded T-shaped engineer that understands the context of where our systems are going to be running. Okay, some attribution. Dr. Aaron Crum is a fantastic entrepreneurial professor in the Center for Entrepreneurship, and I got some of this knowledge from him. He was my professor when I was going through grad school. Okay, so thanks to him. Take his courses. He's fantastic. Ecosystem map, okay? Printers. Who has one of these? Right? You know, this is an impressive piece of technology. And I know you might be angry, right? Because interactions with printers are really super positive. Right, these do impressive stuff. They take digital data and they literally generate it out into the real world, right? They take a digital signal, they make it analog, and an extremely varied signal too, a very rich one with the visuals and all of that. So the question is, wow, how is such an impressive piece of technology only costing $100? That is actually not a ton of money for something that is doing a lot of very complicated stuff with a lot of moving parts. Okay, there's a lot of machinery in here. It's not all digital like your phone is. Okay? And so the question is, how is this so cheap? Well, unfortunately, you also might know the answer in your heart. Okay? If you've ever gone to buy ink, all right? You know what's very interesting? This machine probably costs Epson about $150 to $200 to manufacture, maybe even more. Okay, that's a lot of expensive stuff in this machine. If you look at this ink, which is $34 a pack, or $70 a pack if you want color. Ooh, this ink, how much does that cost to make? And I'll give you a hint. It's less than 5 cents a pack. All right? 5 cents. Right? Okay, it costs, the shipping and the packaging costs more than the actual product. All right? And the returns, the margins are absolutely ridiculous. Epson probably makes at $30 at least on every single ink cartridge that they sell. And by the way, you're going to need a new ink cartridge every few months because they expire and they go stale. Right? So what's going on here? What on earth is going on? Well, here's an ecosystem map. Here's what you do. You draw a product at the center of it. It's very simple. You draw a product at the center, and then all around it, you draw other ways. You draw ways that value exchanges between the company and the user. Okay? Okay, so an Epson Workforce printer. The hardware costs $99, and the user gets the hardware. Okay? But that's not the end of the story. Okay? $99 isn't the end. $30 to $60 per 3 months, and the user gets ink cartridges, okay? So the ecosystem is more than just the initial sale of hardware. You have to consider both of these. And suddenly it becomes a lot more obvious what the business model of Epson is. Okay? They will sell you the hardware at a loss. It's called a loss leader, in order to get you buying the Epson $30 to $60 cartridges where they make tons of money. Okay? And every single 3 months. Okay? Which means they're going to be making money for a while. They're going to make their money back. Their loss from the initial printer is going to go away over time, okay? And if you want proof that this is the way they think and their business model, all you have to do is look in the news, okay? So HP, another printer company, is once again breaking printers with third-party ink cartridges. So the manufacturers will go to any lengths necessary, legal lengths, as much as possible. They'll go to software lengths. They'll do anything to try and block users from escaping this ecosystem, okay? Because ink is super cheap. And if the user can acquire ink for not $30 to $60, but $2 every 3 months, then this entire business model falls apart. This isn't necessarily a matter of greed. This is a matter of, oh my God, like our business model will shatter. Like we're all getting fired and laid off, right? Our business is going under unless we make money some other way. We have to pay for the hardware, so they would have to increase costs. The hardware, they'd have to sell it for $200 or $300 probably, and probably even more if their ink was super cheap. So they will go to any length to fight this, okay? Another example, and actually, I think I won't show you this to save some time. We might come back to it later. Essentially, if you go to Briarwood Mall, not now, but in the past, you would find Craig Albert and his team, a friend of mine, a local entrepreneur who does shared space VR. Okay, what happens is you put on this backpack, which has a laptop in it and a VR headset, and you can all walk around with your team in this little matted off area here. And you can play the game for I think about 15 minutes at a time, or 10 minutes or something. Let's take a look. Right? Okay, so you're defending a flag from robots, or you're defending yourselves from zombies, right? It's a really, really cool game, and it works very well. Here's the ecosystem map for that team, okay? Dreamgate VR, $10 for a play session, and I think it lasts a couple minutes. $10 per play session. You can have a max of 4 players simultaneously, and you can do 6 sessions per hour. This means that the company itself has a cap of $240 per hour per installation that they have. Now, this is pretty cool, but it's not necessarily enough to hire people to keep making games and generate some jobs in the local community. So they need to expand somehow. And so, how else can they get value? Well, they can get value in their ecosystem through implicit advertising. The nature of their product makes it really cool for people to share photos. So you're in a game and you're doing well, and you snap an in-game photo and you send that to your Facebook friends, and suddenly they want to come to Briarwood Mall and play as well. But there's also potentially a Dreamgate platform in the future. If you're in our startup ecosystem, if you watch CNBC, if you're just in the tech hacker community, you hear the word platform thrown around a lot, because venture VCs, so investors, capitalist investors, they really, really like platforms because usually it's a way to get more value out of the customer and also give more valuable to the customer to make your relationship more, I don't know, I guess higher bandwidth. You want to describe it that way. Dreamgate's idea would be to, you know what, we make games for this VR ecosystem, but also we're going to let other people, other developers produce games as well. And people will be able to play their games in the mall, and they'll get a percentage of the revenue from that, and we'll get a cut of that too. So that's maybe a way of getting more value. Here's a big ecosystem, okay? Your phone, all right? I have a OnePlus right here. I think many of you have a Apple iPhone or an Android phone. This is Android. This is a hacked Android. Don't tell anyone. And this is a huge ecosystem, okay? So what I want to do is I want to have a little activity. If you've got a piece of paper or a whiteboard around you, all right, I want you to take a pen or a pencil. I want you to take a piece of paper, anything you can find, right, a piece of paper, and I want you this could become a meme right here, for sure, on the memes page, like the whiteboards, people putting weird messages on the whiteboard. That kind of genre of meme. Anyway, don't do that, though. I want you to go ahead, and we're going to take about 60 seconds. I want you to draw your phone in the middle of this ecosystem map. Okay, like that. And I want you to say, to draw all the other ways that you get value from your phone's ecosystem. Okay, I'll give you a hint. An iPhone, and here's the start. An iPhone has hardware of about $820, iPhone 8, when it launched. Okay, so let's take about 60 seconds, and I want you to go ahead and draw out all the different ways you trade value with your phone's ecosystem. Okay? Go. See you in 60. And in the meantime, I'm going to go look up the meme here. Make sure it's not too spicy. Not like I could do anything if it was. I would just feel bad. Digital code. Text me, Facebook. Okay. I think we had a horror lecture last year in which we showed off an image of like the Shrek horror game where Shrek chases you through the swamp. It's like a clone of Slenderman, and that made it onto some of the meme pages. Oh, okay. It's not alcoholism until you graduate. Chest buddy debt is worse than student debt. I don't see it I don't see us on here. Huh, that's disappointing. Yeah, well, if anyone can find it, send me a link or something. Let's see here. 26, 3. All right, we'll move on. All right, so I want to show you what our ecosystem map is, okay? Or what I had, okay? So first is, hey, you got a phone and you've got hardware, right? So that's a big upfront investment. However, if you happen to be on iPhone, and I think even on Android you can do stuff like this, there's iCloud, which is a service that says, hey, you know what? You're run out of storage on your phone. So here's what we'll do. We're going to store your data for you in our cloud, and you're going to pay us $1 a month for like 50 gigabytes of storage, okay? Hey, all right. 1 billion plus users were using that for Apple in, I think, 2000, around when the iPhone 8 came out. And that's $1 billion like that per month, okay? So that's no chump change. Then you've got all the developers, right? The App Store, all those developers, all those sales of apps in the App Store. Hey, Apple gets a 30% cut of that, all right? And that amounted to 21 billion. In I think when was this? A couple of years ago, maybe 2017 or something. I can't remember when I created this presentation. Apple Music, okay? Hey, you want free music? Okay, Apple Music is the service. You can pay $10 a month, get a lot of music that way. 11 million users use that. You can do the math. That's a good bit of change. How about stickers? Whenever you get an Apple product, it always comes with a couple stickers, right? Because Apple would really like for you to advertise for them, to kind of show off the brand. And so they'll give you stickers. You can put it on your fridge. You can put it on your car. You can put it on your phone. And when others see it, they see that, hey, this kid has an Apple. So that's some value for the company there. What about the Apple Developer Program? In order to make apps, you have to pay $100 a year to Apple to do that. So that's more. But what about this? Well, you've got this cool new Apple iPhone. What goes really well with an Apple iPhone? Well, what about an Apple Watch, right? So you might be more likely now to get an Apple Watch instead of an Android watch. Okay, and the Apple Watch, what do you know? It's got its own hardware and its own app store. And then you know what goes really well with an iPhone and an Apple Watch? What about the Mac? You got a MacBook? Okay, let's get a Mac. And now you've got another hardware purchase, and you've just been connected into another ecosystem because they've got a Mac app store. Okay, and a bunch of ways to ways to trade value there, right? So you can see Apple is the most valuable company on the planet, and part of that is because it's so darn good at exchanging value and getting its users into an ecosystem where they can solve all their problems and they can build a huge relationship with their customers. Okay. You can find out this information from public companies via their earnings reports. These are regulated and required. Companies will divulge their secrets about how they make money, at least some of them, if you are interested. And these companies do a lot of impactful stuff, so it might be worth looking into. So Apple getting bigger, okay. One of the most ironic things, and this is just an aside, is that Apple is actually on the verge of bankruptcy. Bill Gates and Microsoft actually saved Apple from bankruptcy, provided them a big loan, and I think also a bunch of shares, basically to keep them afloat. Why would Microsoft want to keep their biggest rival afloat? Antitrust. So if Microsoft is the only big operating system developer in the country, they will be much more likely to be broken up, which is not in their interest, so they keep some of their competition alive. Good on them, I guess. Okay, let's talk a little bit about games as it relates to ecosystems. So back in 1998, StarCraft comes out, and you buy a game disc, right? You want to play the game, you go to the store and you get a disc, okay? 50 to 60 bucks, and you got StarCraft. You go home, you play the game, boom, that's it, right? Well, not quite. The ecosystem was a little bit more than that. There were some implicit advertising. This game had fantastic multiplayer, and so if you wanted to play multiplayer, you had to tell your friends about the game and they had to buy a copy, okay? Okay, so there you go. There's a little bit of an ecosystem there. And then maybe a year later, an expansion pack comes out. And that expansion pack is like 20 to 30 bucks, and that's pretty much it. All right? But, I mean, that's the end of the ecosystem, really. In 1998, ecosystems and products tended to look a lot like this. You bought the product, and you took it home, and you enjoyed the product. That was the end of it, really. And now that's actually really awesome from a consumer perspective, and I enjoyed that a lot. And there are still a lot of games out there that are this way. However, there was a problem with this approach, and it wasn't something that players could see, okay? So I want you to imagine this. You're running a company, and you have a bunch of employees, okay? These employees cost you several, $100,000+ a year because they're great engineers and artists. And so you have to make a lot of money, and you cannot afford to make a mistake, really. Okay, you're running a business, and let's say you invest 2 years to make a game, because that's about how long it takes. You invest 2 years to make a game, and so millions of dollars are being spent here. And then you put the game out, and unfortunately, it just doesn't click. Game doesn't sell very well. Players don't like it. Or maybe a virus hits, except this virus affects your eyes or your hand-eye coordination. So now you can't really play games. Your timing was bad. Well, what are you going to do? I mean, you can't put out another game for 2 years. It doesn't make sense to put out an expansion pack because no one played your game in the first place. They can't even buy the expansion pack. So what do? And unfortunately, the next step for most of those businesses was to go under, to lay off all their employees, to compromise all those families trying to put kids through college, trying to pay the rent, right? Trying to deal with student loans, right? And so it was a bad time. It created a lot of anxiety in the industry. It was not a fun place to be a developer in the 90s in game dev. It was very, very painful. Having to switch companies all the time, dealing with instability, not good stuff. So like anything, developers see this and they want to change it. Businesses see this and they don't want this to be the approach going forward. And so what do? Well, let's look at another Blizzard game, Overwatch, released not in 1998, but 2016. Okay? Well, you buy the game, and just like StarCraft, you buy the game disc. It's about $40. Okay? And that's good. You take it home, you start playing. Okay? But wait a second. How do you play Overwatch? Well, in order to play Overwatch, you have to launch a program called the Battle.net launcher. And when you launch that program, what it does is it shows you all the games that you own, but it also shows you the games you don't own. In fact, it really shows you the games you don't own. Because, when you go to launch Overwatch, you might see Diablo and StarCraft, and those games are pretty cool. So maybe you'll consider making your next game purchase a Blizzard game, because you see these cool games. All right, so that's some value for Blizzard and for the consumer as well. Okay, what about comic books? All right, so Overwatch has comic books, and they have beautiful, impressive movies and trailers. They have an entire team producing trailers, like cinema quality trailers for their games, so you can engage with the game that way. Kind of, you get to meet the characters and learn more about the world and stuff when you're not even playing. Okay, it's like you're playing the game when you're not even playing. But however, there's also social media integration, right? So I think you can share progress, you can share photos and stuff on social media. You can also, like the Twitter competitions are coming out and stuff, and art competitions and stuff. There are timed events. So the Olympics comes along. Rest in peace to the Tokyo Olympics, I think recently postponed. But the Olympics comes along, or Halloween comes along, and there's a new event. And so for a little while, you have the ability to play the game and get special costumes and special stickers and stuff like that. And so that makes some money for the company, because a bunch of people flood in to get the stuff. That's neat, the new content. And so that's good. And then there are a whole bunch of loot boxes, a whole bunch of loot crates, okay? And not all players have to get these. If the game is balanced all right, they don't mind that, hopefully. But many people will get those just because it's fun, and they want to see if they can get some stuff, just like Pokemon cards. And so look at all of these different ways that a more modern game kind of tries to interact with its users, kind of build an ecosystem for the players of that game. One of the cool things about this approach is that if one of your games falls apart, like let's say one of your games just comes out, your next big game comes out and just fails. No one's playing it. Well, fortunately, the previous game you made is still making money, because there are still timed events coming out, and there's still DLC coming out, and there's still people buying the loot boxes to get new costumes and stuff, and reading the comic books and engaging with the characters, right? Suddenly, you have longevity out of your games. Your risk has gone down. Now, if a company has a failure, maybe even two, they don't necessarily need to shutter and send all these talented and hardworking people onto the street, okay? So, and not onto the street, I mean like looking for a new job, hopefully. But anyway, so the risk has gone down for the developers, and as a player, from the player perspective, this is manifesting in things like loot boxes, right? And things like timed events and ecosystems and launchers, okay, and stores. Okay, every company is trying to find ways to diversify the way in which they get revenue so that they can be more stable and reduce risk for their employees, okay? All right. So, anonymous Ann Arbor developer. The rise of games as a service has changed the developer-publisher dynamic. This is a tangent. In the past, publishers could force harsh deals on developers. Once the game was finished, who cares if the development studio survived? In 2019, if your developer goes under because of your harsh deal, your nasty terms, you lose your entire investment. Because who else can service and maintain and add content to your game? So this is referring to the idea of, in the past, if you were a developer, a publisher like Capcom or Electronic Arts or Activision or Nintendo would say, you know what, you're going to make the game for us, we're going to give you this much money, and then we're going to take 70% of your game, your revenue. Now, if they do that and you go under, they lose their game, because their game has to live. It has to live on, and you have to service it. So negotiations have gotten better for the developers. Okay, just a really interesting recent thing that has happened, and something that could apply to game teams, right? As a game developer, you have more leverage and more stability than we ever have had. And game development is still not a super stable profession, but it's certainly way, way better than it used to be, and certainly a pretty cool place to be, I think, as things just keep improving and getting nicer. Okay, I want to take about 5 minutes. Give everyone a break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about value chains, and then we're going to wrap up, okay? We'll see you in 5. And I'll turn a little bit of music back on, get some Donkey Kong going. Huh. Okay. So I think that's about time. Yep. All right. Let's get back to it. Ah. Oh. Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. So I checked all of the different computer science Facebook pages and I couldn't find any good memes. I mean, there are lots of good memes on there, but no good 494 memes. But yes. Yes. So Twitch. Yes, we are streaming on Twitch, which is pretty neat. I think my EMU colleagues are going to start trying to do that too. We were talking about that with them. It's a good platform. It is built, it is very literally built for scale. And so it seems to be doing all right. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So at the very beginning of this lecture, right, the question of why are all these stores showing up? Why does every company have their own stores these days? Well, the reason is because they want to try and build their own ecosystem. They want to get their customers interacting with their products more. They want to meet more of their customers' needs, you know, and not have their competitors do it for them, right? Electronic Arts builds Origin. Well, actually, we're going to talk about that in just a sec. Let's talk about value chains, okay? So here's our story, okay? A story for you. This is Timmy. Timmy is a student, has $9, and is very hungry. So Timmy's going to Panda Express. Now, this was actually a story from a few months ago when it was still open. Timmy has $9, takes it to Panda Express, gives that $9 to Panda Express, gets a meal. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Panda has that $9 now, but Panda doesn't necessarily get to keep it. So Panda has to do stuff with that $9. Okay, what does Panda do with it? Let's say that Panda takes, and this isn't totally realistic, but it's good enough. Panda takes $5 of those dollars from that meal and uses $5 of those dollars to pay their employees. Okay, now they have to take $2 of those dollars and they have to give it to the shipping company. Okay, the shipping company gets the food to Panda. All right, so they can make their meals and get their job done, serve their customers. Okay, now the shipping company, let's say, takes $2 and gives one of them to the farmers, the people who produce the food that gets shipped, okay, to Panda. All right, so the question is, all right, how much money is Panda making per meal? Let's say they pocket about $2. I think that's actually not quite right. I think it's much lower than that. Restaurant business is very low margin. But let's go ahead and I wonder why that Discord beep happened. I thought I killed Discord. Okay, so Panda pockets about $2 per meal. All right. Now, let's say that's not enough, okay? Because Panda needs resources right now big time. They need some cash flow. Because KFC is it just started their startup, their game studio, and so we gotta get some money for our Panda Express game studio. Okay, we need some cash fast, and maybe the market's not good, so we're not getting a loan. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna want to keep more of that money if we can. So we are going to. I've got someone talking to me through my Gmail. That's why the beeps are happening. Okay, we're gonna buy out this chain. Okay, we're going to buy out, we're going to have our own shipping company, and we're going to have our own farming company. Okay, we're going to have a really nice deal with them. And we are no longer going to give that $2 to this part of the chain. Okay, so we're going to keep it. We're going to give $0 now, and now we get to actually keep more. Now, we don't actually pocket $4 per meal because we have to pay those costs now, but we get to pocket the overhead, the profit that the companies were making. So maybe we're paying $3, we're pocketing $3 instead of $2 per meal. Okay, so that's a very simple example of a value chain, how money and resources flow through a system, and then what a company in the middle of that system can do to try and get more of that value, so they can do other stuff or they can grab a profit if they want. Okay, so you made a great game, and your indie studio wants to sell it. Okay, it's coming out on PS4. Okay, so and here comes the money, right?
Here we go, money talk. Here comes the money.
All right, so here comes the money. But is it really coming? So here's Timmy again, and Timmy has $60. This time, Timmy wants to buy your game. So how's Timmy going to do it? Well, here's how he decides to do it. He takes his $60 and he goes to GameStop. Rest in peace. I believe they are pretty much all going to be closing soon. Gives that $60 to GameStop. Okay? GameStop doesn't keep it. GameStop has to give the game to Timmy. But how did GameStop get the game? Well, GameStop had to get the game from you. But there are a lot of steps. You're over here in the corner. There are a lot of steps between GameStop and you. GameStop gives $45 to the manufacturer, right? The manufacturer who prints the discs. So, okay, printing tons of discs is not super cheap, I guess. And so, okay, how does the disc manufacturer get the code to put on the discs? Well, they get that from Sony, okay, because you have to submit your game to Sony before they will permit it to go onto a disc for their console. And Sony gets $30, and so how much do you get? Well, you get about $15, okay? And while this chain isn't particularly realistic, that number actually is. You get about, as a developer, you get, I think, about 25% of the value of your game in retail. That's not good, right? That is very disappointing. If you're a developer who put years and a lot of effort, right, and ingenuity into developing your product and people love it, right, you're only going to get about a quarter of that value. Because in order to just get the game to the user through this retail, in-person chain, all these different parties have to be involved, and they all need a cut to survive, but they also are going to take a cut because they want a profit too. Okay? So this is not a satisfying state in the world. And whenever you have an unsatisfying state in the world, things are going to start changing, okay? I mean, usually. So you are in this chain, and so you want to make more value, okay? So let's say that you say, you know what, I've had it. I want 70%. I want more than 25% of the value of my game. Okay, well, suddenly this innovation comes out, okay? It's called Steam. It's a way to digitally distribute your games. And maybe it doesn't have a huge audience yet because it's still like the 90s and it just came out, or the early 2000s. So here's how it works through this chain. Timmy sends $60 to Steam and Valve Corporation. They take a 30% cut, or let's just say this time like a quarter, okay? And they're going to give you $45. That is way, way, way better, okay? Are you going to start, as a developer, are you going to start focusing more on this traditional retail chain, or are you going to start to move toward this digital chain, okay? And now you're really thinking, you know what, wouldn't it be awesome if I could just get all 60? Because keep in mind, like, it's hard to sell a ton of copies of a game. It's very, very difficult. However, if you can earn 25% more from every sale of your game, that means that to make the same amount of money, you have to sell 25% fewer copies, which is really nice for you because maybe you want to make a really niche game, a game that's really unique and not super mass market. Well, if you can get more value from each copy you sell, then you can take more risk, which might be really awesome for you. It might allow you to make your dream game, a super weird, unique game, right? You may be able to justify it if you can get more of that chain. Okay, now let's say that you are Electronic Arts. Okay, you are no longer you are Electronic Arts. You have a lot of resources at your disposal. So what are you going to do? Well, you want that $60. You want all of it, and you actually want more than that. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to create your own Steam competitor. You own it. It's called Origin. So when Timmy sends the $60 toward Origin instead of Steam, Origin takes a 30% cut. But you are Origin, so you are not affected, right? Fortunately, though, it's even better than that, because every single other developer who wants to release a game on your platform, now you get a 30% cut of their game. Or if you want to get more developers on your platform, you offer to take a smaller cut, like 20% or 10%, like Epic and Discord were doing, okay? Anyway, so this is an example of a value chain and how money flows through a system and how that chain shifts over time. You might notice something. GameStop is way over here in the first chain, the retail chain, but they're not in these two chains, okay? So ask yourself this question. What happened to GameStop? GameStop got cut out of the chain, okay? They got cut out of the chain, okay? Most players, many players these days, right, are buying their games digitally instead of going to a store, spending gas money and the time to get to a store and buy a game physically. Well, GameStop has nothing to offer. They have no digital distribution platform. Okay, they don't make content themselves. And so what are they to do but wither on the vine? And unfortunately, that's what they've done. Unfortunate for a lot of the people working there. So what happened to GameStop? And what is this? This is the logo for Google Stadia. Now, don't laugh, okay? Streaming is a very interesting innovation in game dev distribution. Now, whether Google and Stadia is the brand to take it and really run with it and dominate streaming is to be seen, all right? It might be Microsoft, it might be someone else, might be PlayStation with their PlayStation Now. Here is what things could look like in the future for streaming. A new version of a chain. Okay, so normally, and why you might want to be excited about streaming. So normally, in order to play a game, Timmy has to do a few things. Okay, $300 to $500 to just get started, because users have to buy a console or a gaming PC to play a lot of these games, and then they have to pay $60 for each game to play the game. Okay, they pay this money to Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and maybe Valve. Okay. The $60 on PC anyway. Okay, and then Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, of that $60 per game, they're going to give $15 to $30 to all of your developers, big and small, from EA to Activision to Matt Makes Games. I think that's the Celeste developer. Okay, well, how about this route instead? Okay, think about this route through a value chain. How about Timmy pays $0, okay, because they already have a device that can run streaming, and they pay $60 for each game. Okay, well, Stadia, or whatever streaming service is in the middle here, is going to take some money, and they're going to give a certain percentage to the developers. Okay? And there's going to be a lot of them. All right? Why do you think there will be a lot of people who can get in on streaming? Well, what happens when you lower the cost of entry, okay? There are a lot of people and a lot of households these days that they don't play many video games because it's so expensive as a hobby. And it's expensive to get started. And there are a lot of households out there that once they spend $300 for a console or a gaming computer, they can't buy as many games. Well, what if customers no longer had to spend that $500 to $300 up front? They could just dump that all into streaming games from Stadia, which means more throughput is happening here, right? Through this part of the chain, which means more money is going to developers through this part of the chain. What will developers start to focus on if these streaming services build up critical mass because of their accessibility? Well, they will probably start to focus on streaming, okay? And when Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony see this chain developing, okay, they don't want to be cut out of the chain like GameStop was, and they might be. There's a risk. And so what will they do, right? They're getting nervous, okay? Real nervous. And so they immediately spring into action. They're technology companies. Microsoft has Azure, one of the biggest, number 2 cloud platform in the world. They immediately announced their xCloud streaming service. We're gonna bring it in. We're gonna undercut. We're going to cut out this part of the value chain before it can cut us out. Okay? And so suddenly Microsoft has a streaming service. And okay, Microsoft and now Sony are teaming up, arch rivals. You know stuff's getting serious when the two arch rivals team up to get their own streaming services running so they can defeat Stadia, ward off Stadia. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting thing that's happening in a way to think about it through value chains. Okay, which one of these routes through the chain will win out? I think it's probably going to be Microsoft and Sony, but only because they adopted the growing and threatening part of the chain down here through streaming. Okay, GameStop Corporation. Yeah, their stock is going way down. And it's going to be zero probably pretty soon. Same thing with a lot of American companies in retail. Macy's, Sears is already gone. Kroger is struggling a little bit, Macy's and GameStop. And part of it is they all just got cut out of the chain, okay? And their leadership, if their executives had seen this coming, they might have been able to do something to stop it, like Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo are doing, where they are adopting the new dominating parts of the chain so they don't get cut out of the entire tree, the entire web. Blockbuster, do you remember this company? There's exactly one left in Oregon. It is the last Blockbuster, and it has its Twitter account, the Lone Blockbuster. This was a company, a proud company founded in 1985. It had 85,000 employees. Okay? So a lot of impact on a lot of people. Unfortunately, they were in a really bad place with the value chain because Blockbuster, if you didn't know, what they did back in the day was they allowed you to rent movies and games. Okay? Movies and games were really expensive to buy. So a game was like $50, and a movie could be like, I think, $20 or $30 to buy on a disc or on a cartridge, a cassette player, cassette. And so what happened was players and viewers would go to Blockbuster to rent a movie or a game, and they'd view it for a couple bucks, right? Instead of paying $50, you'd pay like 10 maybe. And you would enjoy, and then you'd return it, and boom, you're done. Okay? And Blockbuster made a killing off that business model. But there was a problem. Okay, Blockbuster was in a precarious part of the chain because at the end of the day, they did not make the content. Okay? And content creators absolutely despised Blockbuster because when Blockbuster buys one copy of your game and rents it out to 1,000 people, does the developer get one copy's worth of value or 1,000? Okay? They get one. Despite the fact that 1,000 people played the game, they only see the returns and value from one person buying the game, which makes it super hard to make more games, and everyone goes and gets bankrupt, and that's not good. So the developers had a stronger part in this chain. They were the source of this chain. And so what they did was they cut Blockbuster out. They said, you know what? Movies and games, they're going digital. We're going to create ways to get this digital content to our players. And we're going to cut out Blockbuster. And we're going to take more of that value. Blockbuster didn't see this coming. Netflix came in and said goodbye, right? They cut them out. Now it's much, much simpler, right? The chain has simplified. It is now user pays Netflix, Netflix plays movie studio. Done, right? And Blockbuster got cut out, and so they were killed, right? It was a slow demise. Very sad. But what's interesting was that Blockbuster actually had a competitor to Netflix. In fact, I think Blockbuster, if I recall, teamed up with Enron of all companies to create a Netflix killer. And they failed. And they also then decided not to purchase Netflix, which they could have done. And the rest is history. They were cut out of the chain and cut out of history. Cut out of the future, in other words. Digital delivery provided their value and more. They were cut from the chain, okay? So at this point, and here's the takeaway from the story, Blockbuster needed to ask themselves where they were in this chain and needed to truly ask themselves, what value do I actually provide? Am I just really a middleman? Because you know what happens to middlemen? They get sliced out, okay? Eventually, they get taken out by the producer of value and the consumer of value. They want to have a really frictionless path if possible, and they'll cut middlemen out eventually. All right. So And here's another thing. Like, if you are at Blockbuster, right, in the 90s, you might want to be asking yourself, like, should I still be here? Does it make sense to be at this company? If you go and graduate and work at Amazon, right, and let's say that you are on the, I don't know, you're on the Kindle team, maybe. This is just totally hypothetical. Let's say you're at Amazon and you're on the Kindle team. And suddenly, a crazy new innovation happens, and Amazon announces to the entire world and to your team, because you didn't know, that the Amazon virtual or embedded brain Kindle is coming out. It's a way to give you a tablet without giving you a tablet. They literally like plug into your brain to make you think you have a tablet, and you don't actually have a tablet. This is a contrived example. But if that actually starts to happen, you might probably question whether you should jump ship to another team or not, right? Noticing when your team is going to be cut out of the chain, that is you might be able to recognize when you need to get out of a team, when you need to jump onto a team that's going to become the focus of the company, where all the advancement opportunities are going to be, where all the resources to do cool stuff is going to be, right? Like, you can get wind of where things are headed, where organizations are headed, and what is important at those organizations if you really just kind of sit there and look around. Okay? Anyway, think in terms of value chains. Who provides value at your organization? In your community, who provides value? Who just merely handles value and is likely to be cut out? And then who consumes the value? Okay? And you can decide where you want to be based on that. Anyway, tools for business questions, right? Why did Lootbox appear? Why did EA create Origin? Why is GameStop going to go bust soon? Right? These are questions that can be solved with these two simple tools: ecosystem maps, value chains. And in general, just again, it might feel odd that you're in an engineering course and you're learning about business and you're thinking about this stuff. But really, you cannot create good systems, right? And as engineers, that is our pride and joy. We got to create the best systems that are very efficient, that do what they're supposed to, that work, and that work for a long time. Well, a system you build might not survive, no matter how well it is programmed, if your team is defunded next month, okay? Or if something as simple as, wow, we ran out of rent in our building, and now we had to literally unplug our server. It's dead, right? Or, wow, I'm on a team that Jeff Bezos doesn't really care about very much, and I can't get any funding to hire any interns and to replenish the people who leave my team. Wow, right? I should probably jump to another team, right? These are questions that matter, and your engineering, your systems, your programming will be affected by how well you can predict this stuff and how much you think about this stuff, okay? So think about it. It's extremely fun. One of the coolest things, one of the best discoveries you can make is that there are a billion amazing disciplines out there. From art, you spent all this time, you spent 4 years immersing yourself in engineering and programming, only to get to the end and discover, oh my gosh, art is fantastic. And I could have spent so much time doing that and finding joy and new knowledge and creativity. What about music? The magic of music. What secrets lie in music production? How do people just make your heart sing with certain vibrations, right? And so, same thing with business, right? How do you get these lean and mean organizations that manage to put people, put satellites in space, create incredible networks, incredible games that no one has seen before? How do they do this in an efficient way while still releasing products that only cost a few bucks, right? It's absolutely incredible. All these different disciplines. Anyway, I'm just gushing now. So I want to get out of this, and I want to ask as we transition, well, let's give you like 30 seconds. Type into the chat if you have any questions, okay? That's the main thing that's lost, I feel like, from these Twitch streams. Like, I don't get the interactivity. And that's not your fault. It's just the format, I think. Interactivity is most of the fun for me, unfortunately. But that's okay. It's still fun to talk about this stuff. I could come up with some of my own questions, maybe. Yeah, drink some Monster. Okay. Trailer production tips. You do not care about those yet. You're not making trailers yet. Exhibiting. I want to show you some fun stuff from exhibiting, okay? This is just a fun lecture. You won't be exhibiting a whole lot. You won't be doing any in-person exhibiting. So this knowledge isn't necessarily critical. But this is still one of those fun topics. One of the issues is when we lose all of our in-person stuff, we actually have a content crunch in this course where all of our in-person and our field trips are canceled and our in-person lectures and activities are canceled. So now we're burning through lectures way faster than normal. This is still fun though. So showcasing your game, right? So if you ever get out and you're showcasing a product in front of a big crowd in person, there are a few things you might want to consider, okay? One, there are ways to win an expo without actually bringing the best product. And that's, I think, something that frustrates a lot of creative people, I think. So you build an incredible game or an incredible piece of art, and yet, you know, someone shows up to an expo and they seem to be winning with an inferior product. No, and maybe it's not inferior. Maybe you feel that way, but maybe it actually is, right? There's less investment in the product. It's less polished. It actually speaks to the audience worse. But the problem is you're not speaking to the audience very loudly, and your opponents are. And so here's a way to speak to your audience in a very loud and clear and articulate voice so that your superior product is the one that actually wins. Booth height. This is a GDC talk. I don't remember the developer's name. I apologize. Who's the developer's name? You suck at showcasing your game. This is Nikolay Burbeke. All right.
Now, you're at the event. What do you do first? You build your booth. And when it comes to building booths, height is very important. This was the Move or Die booth at Gamescom, and you can see that is Move or Die because we had a big banner saying Move or Die. And next to us, there was a very cool game called Epistory, because you can see their banner. But next to them was another cool game that I cannot name because I cannot see their banner. So height is super important, and that's why these are the things you see when you first walk into a venue, these huge banners, and that's why they're on the ceiling, because height is at a premium, and the higher you can get your print, the better. Here's a weird setup. I had at one of the events where I put a screen.
Yep, so height is super important, and it's very simple. But the taller you can get something, the more it's going to stand out, simply because you're fighting gravity when other people failed to fight it. It takes effort to fight gravity, right? Which means that fewer people are going to try and do it, which means that you become more unique by doing it. So grab attention. Let's see here. I believe this has to do with lighting and putting weird stuff at your booth.
But they have a surprisingly short time frame when it comes to grabbing their attention. And I was thinking how I can show this in a very interesting way. So what I did is at an event that I was showcasing Move or Die at, I just stepped away from my booth and I was recording random people walking by my booth. And then I edited that footage and I added a number above their head representing the number of seconds they were looking at my booth. And you end up with something like this. And this took a lot of time to edit. As you can see, in this case, we're under 5 seconds. So that's a very small time frame. Here's a different one. They were just walking by, they see my booth. He was checking his phone a little bit, looking at the booth a bit more. And yeah, that's under 10 seconds. That's 10 seconds. And this is the last one, and it's my favorite. Some girls were passing by, they were looking at the booth, and I was panning to show the booth, and then back to them, and they're gone. And I couldn't even set this up if I wanted to. So yeah, you have a super short time frame to get their attention, and you have to give them something to do. So what we did is we made this.
Yeah, so this team actually put a lot of little stuff that you could get at your booth and see. Other teams actually put lighting and stuff at their booth, right? Lights to flash to get people's attention, to keep it a little bit longer. They put their monitors up high so you can actually see something, which means that you might have a chance to pay more attention for longer. Giveaways. I'm not sure if we're just going to go back exactly to the other place we just were. Let's see here.
next up. Giveaways. Basically, you want a lot of people at your booth, and giveaways do exactly that. So I'm sure you walked around at an event, you saw a lot of zombie hands in the air. That's probably because the company was throwing free stuff in the crowd. It's usually pretty easy to make these things. You can make anything from plushes, pins, shirts. And these things are super amazing because they give you this seal of validity. They make you look super professional, even though you might not be. Also, you can even just print Steam keys on a business card, and even.
Yeah. So at booths and at expos, a really cool thing, and one of the reasons so many fans go there is to get free stuff, right? And it doesn't necessarily matter if it's something that's cheap, right? Something as cheap as a sticker or a pin could get people to your booth, right? They want to take home some exclusive limited merchandise to commemorate their time. At the EECS 494 showcase, the in-person version, usually this manifests in some stickers that students will print. Some teams will create a 3D print of one of their characters from their games, and they'll put their characters at their table, which is really cool. Sometimes students will have plushies at their table. Basically anything to get people over there saying, oh wow, this is a little bit strange, huh? Right? Get people in, pique their interest a little bit. So yeah, the 494 showcase is, unfortunately, the in-person version is very similar to actual showcases in industry. First impressions are super, super important. You can make your setup visible by putting stuff high in the sky, right? And getting big monitors to show a lot of stuff off. Audio is extremely important, okay? One of the coolest things you can do, probably not now though, is when the virus clears, go to an arcade. Okay, go to an arcade, go to Pinball Pete's, and you will see games that were literally developed with this kind of environment in mind. Like their entire business model is around, I'm fighting a bunch of games that look cool near me, and I have to be the one that the player chooses to put their quarter into, right? So you'll see arcade machines that have beautiful, fast-moving, action-packed graphics playing in an attract mode. Like when players aren't at the console, they'll be showing off gameplay and cool visuals. And they'll have really dynamic music that sounds really interesting and intriguing and brings you in. Anything to cut through the audience and look unique, and to you're trying to convey your value as soon as you can so that players aren't confused and they can choose you, right? Players will choose what they understand. So you want players to understand you as soon as you can. So audio, a lot of teams bring their speakers, lights, right? So some booths bring lights and unique setups, banners. The Wolverine Soft Studio created a really cool banner for Dream Willow last year. That's fantastic, very beautiful. Clothing, right? So I want to show you more clothing, hopefully. Yes, so here's an example of a cool student booth that brought in monitors and a little blow up a character of one of their characters in the game. And they also had this, the team next to them had actual like characters plopped up. You had posters, right? Pretty high up so you can see what's going on. Team members dressed in costumes themed around their game, which is very cool. Like there's nothing that really grabs your attention like seeing a ninja in the BBB, right? When it's not even close to Halloween. A team made a game about schools, so they dressed up as school teachers, which is pretty neat. A team made a game about wrecking crews and wrecking balls, and so they wore these construction hats, which is very, very impressive. And they some teams even provided like in-person links to the player game on itch. Players printed out copies of their characters, right? So you could see them and be brought over. And like literally, when you look at this shot, your eyes are probably going to go pretty quickly to these characters. And there's a reason for that. Like, I think I probably went over this in class, but humans are like biologically trained to love and be attracted to faces and eyes. Like, vaguely human-looking ones at least. And so putting like adorable characters up high is pretty much a guaranteed way to get people to look at your stuff. So, all right. Let's keep going. Scrappy Pappies was really fun. It's a game about old men. You already saw that one. Old men in wheelchairs mining and building a rocket to the moon. So they brought in their plaid and their, tucked in their shirts, and they brought in their wrench right there and their beards. Very, very cool stuff. Here's a team that brought in a bunch of stickers to take away. So that was very impressive. They even got up onto the BBB stairwell, and they used that to post their characters up here right in front of their booth. I got in a bit of trouble for that one, but it was worth it. So a lot of cool stuff. You can see that the showcase is just so crowded, and you're not going to be at this showcase, unfortunately. However, you will eventually be at an exhibition like this, and so I encourage you to kind of think about that moment and what you're going to do in that moment. Okay? Take the same energy and playfulness that you put into your game design, your actual game, and also put it into your booth. Okay? Do something funky. Get people excited. All right, last year at the showcase, a lot of cool costumes. It's a good time. Okay, here is something to seriously consider, though, for your actual game builds. How your game should consider progressing. So on a title screen, you typically want all players to be ready, and then you go to some sort of cutscene to introduce the game. If the cutscene ends, you go to a tutorial. That tutorial asks the players to do something and prove that they understand the mechanic. However, it also allows players to skip the tutorial, if they all agree to something. So like if all players agree to press the start button, it'll skip the tutorial. Otherwise, everyone is forced to do it. And then you get to the game, okay? When the game is completed, you go to a result screen so everyone knows what happened, right? And then you allow the players or the team to quick restart. In general, players don't want to have to go all the way through this chain every time they want to play the game or when the game ends. So again, try and respect the player's time. Allow them to restart the game quickly if possible, okay? All right. So title, ready up screens, make it attractive. Don't have exit game. So all of your games are going to be like, they're not going to have a showcase mode because we're not doing an in-person showcase. So I wouldn't worry too much. The last thing I want to show you is this right here, okay? Indie Game the Movie is a game that follows several small indie dev studios as they try and make their game. So I'm going to show you a clip from Indie Game the Movie, particularly a clip with Phil Fish, who is a developer who created Fez on a one-person team. Fez was a pretty popular indie platformer puzzle game. And the problem is Phil took this game to a conference, I think PAX West. And the game, he was making too many changes the night before. He ended up with an unstable build, and bad things happened at the expo, okay? So don't let this happen to you, and don't be making changes the night before you submit, okay? Even a deliverable on Canvas, because you don't want to submit a broken build. That would be very bad for your grade. Let's take a look.
Life on it. I don't know what I think of it anymore. I've been staring at it for so long. I really can't tell if it's good or not. Sometimes I manage to convince myself that it's good, and it's like, yeah, you did a good job, Phil. It's a pretty good game. But then I have like a flash of lucidity, and I'm like, but you can't trust yourself on this. Like, all you've been doing for 4 years is look at this, like this close. Like,
I'm trying to skip ahead here, but I'm having trouble. Will this work better in Chrome, maybe? I'll try it. Hold on. And this, we were supposed to go to, what is it again? It is, I think maybe this might just be buffering issues. 2332.
I don't know what I think of it anymore. I've been staring at it for so long. I really can't tell if it's good or not. Sometimes I manage game since we first showed it.
Pre-success before you ever released.
Yeah.
Okay, here it
We'll
is.
see what happens.
Oh, no. Oh, 23. Sorry.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I think that's a bug.
What's up?
That's a bug. I think you're stuck now.
Yeah.
Give me that moment. Yeah. I don't know what that was,
Yeah.
but he's supposed to keep talking and then something happens.
Gotcha.
If you don't mind starting
No,
over.
no, it's all good. It's all good. Thank you.
First player, game-breaking bug right away. Right away. Oh, god damn it. Oh, it's completely broken.
Sorry.
That's not good. Yeah, I need to restart this thing. Keys. There's a game-breaking bug right away. Right away. You can't play it. Game keeps crashing all the time. It's completely unstable. There are game-breaking bugs like right at the beginning. Damn it! Like even the start new game, it starts a bugged out game that doesn't work. I need to restart the computer like practically every time somebody's done playing. It's a disaster.
Really?
It's a complete fucking disaster. What happened? Where were you at?
Nothing, just hit start new game.
It just stayed in the sky. One moment. But like every time it crashes, it feels like a personal failure, like a deep personal failure. I need to actually kill the game and restart it. Like I should apologize. Like, oh, I'm so sorry I wasted your time. And you can start again if you want, but yeah. We made too many changes last night, and now we have an unstable build on our hands.
He did recover. The game recovered, was well received, and made a lot of money. That maybe you don't have to feel too bad, but that should hurt your soul a little bit. Okay, please do not send us an unstable build. Don't have an unstable build on your hand. It's not going to feel good. Okay. Anyway, that's it for the day. Please expect your feedback videos, your P3 Milestone 2 results to come out later tonight. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in.